I am in the process of nominating a certain gentleman, one Paul Fussell, as the official curmudgeon of these United States, an honor which, if he knew about it, would be assured to piss him off no end, which is convincing evidence for me of what a great and true curmudgeon he is. He was wounded near the end of the war in Europe. He required several surgeries before he was cleared for further duty, and so, patched up and heading, full of dread, for the Pacific Theater, he heard about the explosion of 2 nuclear devices and the subsequent surrender of Japan. He was never one to question the wisdom of Harry Truman, but that did not signal the immediate end to his military service. Extraction from the Army was based on a system of points, and so Fussell remained on active duty, active, that is, in the sense of still being in the Army, even though there was nothing to do. He was assigned to a series of pointless tasks. All these post-war military experiences acquainted me with the whole dynamic of institutional fraud, boredom, and futility, he wrote, and I began to understand what service in the peacetime military must be like. My sole recourse was reading, which increasingly dominated my time and my mind. To literature I fled the furthest possible distance from the simplifications and conformity demanded by the military. Fussell would later claim that it was the Army that drove him into a career of teaching literature. Fussell finally did get out, and he returned to college at Pomona, where he had been a very mediocre student. Now he was transformed. The most complex studies, like the work of Henry James, enthralled him. The more difficult the construction of the words, the more complex the grammar, the more interested he became. With the help of his older brother, he entered graduate school in Harvard, where, thanks to a few near escapes, he obtained his Ph.D. He began to teach rather unhappily at the Connecticut College for Women. He then taught, somewhat unhappily, for many years at Rutgers. He was mildly amazed to find that the academic world reminded him of nothing other than the military, with its emphasis on rank and privilege, the endless giving out of orders, and the obligation to follow those orders, idiotic though they may be. But as time passed, his workload decreased, his salary grew large, he got tenure, and a much better spot in the parking lot. And he was even paid to take time off and write, and he discovered that he loved to write, was positively invigorated by it. He wrote a number of scholarly texts developed from the classes he taught: poetic meter and poetic form, the theory of prosody in 18th century England, the rhetorical world of Augustan humanism. In the demanding, often obscure precision of English literature, a subject many would find arcane, tedious, and boring, Fussell found an antidote to the coarse brutality and chaos of war. We all hoped, he wrote, that our effort would help restore subtlety, civility, and decency after their wartime disappearance. As a writer, Fussell was the opposite of Raymond Carver. Carver would say, I think, that form is what you have when you finished a piece of writing. Fussell would say that form is what you have before you begin. Carver was a blue sky guy. Fussell was a blueprint guy. It isn't a matter of right and wrong. It's different methods, different approaches, different results. Fussell obviously was no fan of free verse or free love or free expression or free anything for that matter. He began to write books on non-literary subjects, indictments of the culture and society as a whole. He wrote a book about class in America that he thought was humorous, but others took as pure sociology. He wrote a book called The Dumbing of America, noting the swift descent of his beloved country into pure stupidity. He wrote collections of essays, and he wrote books about war. In all of them the curmudgeon flourished, squawked, and grew. Fussell had found his hidden being in the fire of combat, and he remained a highly combative individual for the rest of his life, never ducking a fight, instigating as many as he could. He will make a fine, official, national curmudgeon.